Hello, I'm Terry Stedman. I'm an employee at Caxton as a solicitor. I am also the chair of the RAP committee and a proud Camilroy man. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I'm here on today, which are the Yagara people and also the Yugambeh speaking people just down the road from me. I was up till yesterday. I'd spent quite a lot of time in the past week in Mununjali country down the road. Mununjali country is in around the Bow Desert and Scenic Rim area. Takes in places that where significant atrocities and quite a lot of removal of children occurred there in the past, and of course those things were subject of the Bring Them Home report, which was commissioned by the federal government years ago. Prime Minister Kevin Rudd was acknowledged the report and the effects of removal on of children from families in years past. The report itself looked at removals from the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community from the years 1910 to the year 1970. An inordinate number of children had been removed by government under a policy that they saw to protect children and to promote the government's position at the time. Since that time, and probably even more relevant, very recently, there have been more children removed from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander families per capita than ever in this country's history, than ever any time considered in the Bring Them Home report. I am concerned about that. I am concerned that we don't seem to have sufficient political support to address those things that were identified in the Bring Them Home report. The inhumane treatments, the inequity, the unfairness, the brutality, the dismissive nature of the ruling class over Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who had been subjugated by colonisers through force. The Bring Them Home report came up with 5 measures that they saw for reparation of the harm that had been perpetrated on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities and all families by the forced removal of children. One was the acknowledgement and apology to them of what had happened. Well, Kevin Rudd gave a very heartwarming speech one day there on the lawn in Parliament. On the lawn of Parliament, it was in very large letters it said the first step. Whether that be the first step forward or backward, I'll leave that up to you to assess. But the 5 measures, as seen in a guide for reparations, the Van Boven guide, it was 1, as I said, the acknowledgement and apology. 2, guarantees against repetition. Well, the numbers don't seem to add up. Measures of restitution. Measures of rehabilitation and monetary compensation. If you look at the effects that it has had on removing children from their parents of any culture, in say Queensland for example, all those children that are in state care significantly overrepresented in the youth criminal justice area. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children are a greater percentage of any other race in care, in state care. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are 27 times more likely to be imprisoned than anyone who isn't Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander. They actually represent around 27 to 28% of the national prison population. But the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island population of this country is only 3.5% of the overall population. It's a significant overrepresentation. There aren't too many of us that go through tertiary education, and most of us are told that you don't have a chance of getting through. We are underrepresented in tertiary education. Despite a Prime Minister saying in recent times that he wanted to see more Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island graduates from universities. Well, without the intergenerational wealth, without the solid foundation behind us to be able to move forward on that, and those foundations have been pulled out from underneath us, it's very difficult. And for those of us that do get through, quite a number of us wind up working in areas to support community because we've seen it. Our families are part of what happens and how we're administered, and those things are identified in the Bring Them Home report. During the period that's been discussed in the Bring Them Home report, for a significant portion of that period of time, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people weren't even deemed as citizens of this country, despite the fact that they'd been occupying this land for more than 60,000 years. Despite the fact that they had been herded into missions, that they'd been shot en masse, they'd been poisoned en masse. It was recognised that they were the owners of this land, but they had their right removed forcibly from them, and they had their children taken away from them. Break the culture, break its future. It was a significant attempt to destroy the future of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in what was being done. There needs to be more done to achieve something significant and substantial. I can only hope that one day a leader will see that. I can only hope that one day a leader will sit back and look at the Bring Them Home report and say, we failed to achieve these goals. Very much similar to the Royal Commission into Aboriginal Deaths in Custody. Of all of those recommendations, how many were honestly achieved? We seem to have quite a lot of commissions of inquiry into the needs of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people that cost millions of dollars. We don't seem to see the similar spending on the ground to support them in recognition of the inequities and suffering they have had over time. So please look at the Bring Them Home report, particularly this year for all of those dyed-in-the-wool colonisers, and there are some around still. This year is the 250th anniversary of Cook's landing in Sydney Cove. I didn't celebrate it. Don't know whether too many did. Well, thank you all for listening to my rant for the past few minutes. I will encourage you to go on to YouTube and type in Archie Roach and look for his song Took the Children Away. It's very emotional, particularly for Archie, because he was himself a removed child. I'll leave you with that thought, and thank you very much for listening.